And now your organization is a service organization, and you're trying to take quality methods that have been developed for a manufacturing system and apply them to a service system. And what you're really trying to do is you're really trying to do process improvement. And so your implementation of Six Sigma is going to be different in a manufacturing environment because you're going to be focused on processes and improving processes. So the emphasis on the statistics and the engineering there might not be the right emphasis for implementing Six Sigma in an insurance company or service company. So you might want to really focus in on the re-engineering tools, on the
implement of breakthrough changes is allowed. So actually we can in some areas we can do real breakthrough changes to stress.
And again, I'd like your team to spend a little bit of time thinking about criteria for selecting solution concepts. So how do you know a good idea when you see it? And when it comes time to evaluate our ideas, what criteria are we going to use to evaluate?
That link to the public strategy. Is that what you mean?
Right. So give a little time to think about that before you finish our presentation. Any other thoughts or comments for this group?
I just wanted to share with you, before that, when I had the opportunity to share my experience at the Six Sigma Summit in Singapore recently. There's a service industry called Deutsche Bank. Again, previously they conduct Six Sigma within the organization, and they found out that the Six Sigma doesn't really improve in terms of using statistical. What they changed is they changed the whole strategy into a Triz type of strategy. So now they stick to Triz, looking at new process development or product development in terms within the organization. So yeah, that could be one of the things that you might want to look into in terms of different organizations using different type of strategy.
Well, it's not here.
Combination with Triz with the 7 management and planning tools can be very powerful for this type of implementation. The basic 7 you know the 7 management and planning tools can be very helpful here.
Well, that's not suited for planning, whether the problem solving is.
But what you're really trying to do in the service industry is you're trying to redesign your process. And so you need to find out what are the issues you have with the process and prioritize those issues. And then you need to come up with new ideas on how to change the process. So Triz can be very helpful there. And then you need to prioritize those new ideas. And then you need to implement them. So the 7 management and planning tools very helpful to that whole system. I can show you what we did with ASQ when we ran it with this. Okay, let's take this. Okay, so after you work on select criteria for selecting solution concepts, the next thing I want you to work on is to do the problem formulation. So let's talk about how we do problem formulation.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the criteria for selecting solutions? Very clear on this.
Yeah, it's just when you get ideas for, we're going to come up with a lot of ideas using trees. So how are we going to sort through those ideas and determine which ones are the ones we want to prioritize for implementation? So we need to establish some criteria for how do we know we have a good idea. So if I look on the, it says criteria for selecting solution concepts. It says select your success criteria. Make sure that the limitations are reasonable. Also try to avoid criteria that push the problem-solving process in a particular direction. So, so it's like indicate the desired technical characteristics, indicate the desired economic characteristics, indicate the desired timetables, indicate the expected degree of novelty of the solution, consider additional criteria such as appearance, convenience, maintenance, service. How are we going to judge the ideas once we come up with them? So it's a good idea to select those criteria ahead of time.
So for example, the project is 6 Sigma. Can I say that one of the criteria will be on the understanding of the concept training?
Sure, you could say that. A good solution will be a solution that promotes understanding of what Six Sigma is about through the organization. You could put that as a criteria. And then you may want to evaluate your ideas with respect to that and other criteria as well. Does this idea, is it something that will promote a good understanding of the organization? And if not, then maybe we don't want to prioritize that idea for implementation.
When we move down to solution concept, it's actually we are imagining the ultimate solution.
Right. Think about ideality.
Idea.
Yeah, right. What would an ideal system look like? What criteria would it have? What we want to do now is we want to work on problem formulation and do a diagram. I'm getting this error again, and I don't know why. For some reason, I'm getting an error on my, maybe it's connected to the projector.
Because we're not getting it.
Now I think for the Six Sigma problem, I want you to switch back to the knowledge wizard. And for the problem with the exterior color mismatch, I don't know if you want to use knowledge wizard now or if you want to stick with innovation workbench. So are we primarily focused more on is it more of a non-technical problem now? Trying to come up with identical processes versus a technical problem? It seems like it's more of a non-technical problem. But you can think about that. So we want to create a diagram.
So knowledge wizard now?
Yeah, so I'm switching to knowledge wizard.
Where do we create the diagram at which stage of the problem formulation?
Pardon?
We call it, at which stage do we go and create the diagram that you just mentioned? Now, just before the problem formulation.
This is the diagram is used for problem formulation. So after you've done the innovation situation questionnaire,
Yep.
the next thing is to work on the diagram. And what you might want to do is go to Innovation Workbench, take all the things that you've written, and just highlight and copy them, and then go over to Knowledge Wizard and paste. So I think that might be a good thing to do. And you can put your diagram, now in the Knowledge Wizard, you can put your diagram on one side, and you have your innovation situation questionnaire on this side. So if you have certain key words, so it's maybe snake, maybe poison, maybe low-cost workers, maybe health risk. Anyway, you've got certain words here. When you're working with the diagram in Knowledge Wizard, there's a couple ways that you can start to build a system map. One way is you can highlight a word and just drag it. And you can create a function here in on the diagram side. So you can drag and drop words from your innovation situation questionnaire. You can drag and drop them over into your diagram in Knowledge Wizard. So let's create a diagram. I'm going to go to Window and I'm going to close Notes. So now the whole screen is just a diagram. And what we want to do is we want to create a map of our system, of our situation, that shows the contradictions, that shows the functions that are improving and the functions that are degrading or harmful. And when you're typically working on a diagram, the best way to start is at the place where you really have a problem. So what is the problem that you're really trying to work on? And in our situation, if we think about the snake problem, and we'll just use the snake problem just to try to learn how to do the diagram. And in this case, I'm going to double-click on the left-hand side, and I'll get a box here that says a new function. And what's the heart of our issue associated with the snake problem? Okay, we want to measure the length of the snake. And is that useful or harmful? It's useful. Okay. So it comes in green. Now, why is measuring the length of the snake useful? Why is it useful? Pardon? Okay. So we can measuring the snake is useful because it produces information on a good diet, which is useful. So now there's a couple ways of doing this. What I did is I went to this box, did a right click, and then just extended out into another box. And I can always cancel that. Why is having information on a good diet important? So we can raise healthy snakes, which is useful. And why is that important? So we can harvest the venom, which is a useful thing.
It's just asking why.
Yeah, why? And so measuring the snake is good for us, but what issues do we have with measuring the snake? We want to use low-cost workers. So I can double-click and go low-cost worker, which are useful, right? And I can right-click and move into this box. Low-cost workers can produce measuring the snake. Low-cost workers, I have a problem with a low-cost worker, which is the high risk of getting bitten. High risk of being bitten, which is harmful. Why is a risk of being bitten harmful? Because, why is it harmful? okay, because it could injure the worker, which is not good. And it could also raise our health insurance, produces high insurance cost, which is harmful. Could lead to bad reputation. This is bad reputation, which is harmful. And so the low-cost workers have a high risk of being bitten. Now you could have experienced workers could be useful, and that would inhibit. So if I go here, counteract, an experienced worker would counteract the high cost of being bitten, right? But the problem with an experienced worker is that high labor cost produces high labor costs. Not so good. Right. So we have a snake. So we have a snake, which is a useful thing. And the snake is contained in a cage. Lives in a cage, which is a useful thing. And the snake gives us produces a high risk of being bitten, right? So anyway, this is the kind of thing that we want to start doing. And what you need to do is you need to start playing with this and start to map your system. What does this system really look like? And just start to look at the elements of your system and see if you can come up with a diagram that shows how the different aspects of your system relates to each other. And so that's what we're doing in this diagram itself. You can use the Innovation Situation Questionnaire to help you draw this diagram. So like I said, you can drag and drop words from the Innovation Situation Questionnaire over to the diagram side. Once we've got the diagram drawn, then we're going to go and formulate. So I'm going to put my cursor over here under Directions for Innovation, and I'm going to hit Formulate. I can go to the window. And now, what the software does is the software is finding all the leverage points for system change. So for example, it says, try to resolve the following contradiction. The useful factor, the low-cost workers should be in place to enhance the measure, the length of the snake, and should not exist in order to avoid the high risk of being bitten. Okay? Find an alternative way to obtain low-cost workers that provide the following. Provides or enhances measuring the length of the snake, but does not cause a risk of being bitten. So what you do is, some of these will be nonsense, but some will be some good directions for us to work on. So once we've got the system mapped, and we're happy with the map of the system we created, then we hit the formulate button and we formulate, and the software will find for us all of the possible directions for innovation. And we'll read them over. So find an alternative way to measure the length of the snake that enhances the information on a good diet but doesn't require low-cost workers. So we might say, oh, that's something that I want to work on. If it's not something we want to work on, we'll go to the next one. Now you notice that as I go to the next one, different parts of the diagram light up. So you can see where this direction came from on the diagram itself. What I do is I can chevron this. See this little pink chevron, this check mark? I hit the check mark. Go back to the window. And I go down here, and the ones that I check mark come down here under prioritized directions. And then when it comes time to brainstorming, we're going to click on this. And now the operators that we can start to brainstorm on appear on the right-hand side. So find a way to increase the effectiveness of a good diet. So if that's what I want to work on, here's an operator. Replace a stimulus with a stronger one, and here's an example. See? So what happens is once we select the directions that we want to work on, the software finds for us the operators that we need to brainstorm on. And then we brainstorm on the right-hand side. So if we select this operator, and it says, don't forget to take into consideration people's needs and motivations. For example, an exciting story written by a journalist intrigued with you or your business might yield better results than an expensive advertisement. And you say, oh, that stimulates an idea. Then the knowledge wizard, I'll hit the little lightning thing, and then we put in our idea. So we type in our idea, and we say save, and we can close that, and then the idea should appear down here as well. Maybe we can copy it. Yeah. We say copy, and then the idea appears right. Now in the innovation workbench, that idea would pop up. Would be typed in here automatically. It wouldn't say, wouldn't have to tell it to copy it. So that's the direction that we're going. So the first step for us to go in that direction next is to do this diagram, and that's what I want your teams to work on, is the diagram. Now, in a complex problem, it's not unusual to have a variety of diagrams. So I looked at how do we do a better job of implementing quality tools at Ford. So I did that for the Vice President of Light Truck Engineering. And I pulled together a team of people to look at the Ford culture. And we actually created, I think it was like 12 or 13 different system maps, different aspects of the system. If your map starts to get too big or too large, it becomes difficult to work with, and it's better to break it up into several smaller maps. But for our situation, so for a real problem and something that you're really interested in solving, you might have a dozen maps representing different aspects of the problem that you would create and work on, maybe with the same team, maybe with different teams, depending on the expertise of the team members involved in the project. But what I'd like you to do now is to go ahead and start to work on the system map for the Six Sigma performance and the system map for exterior color mismatch. And decide whether you want to use Knowledge Wizard or Innovation Workbench. If your problem's mostly technical, then you want to use Innovation Workbench. If you think now, for the bumper problem, that you're really dealing more with political or non-technical issues, then maybe you want to switch to Knowledge Wizard. You can always use the Innovation Workbench for non-technical problems once you get good at it, but you do it by analogy. So you'll see an operator that has a technical example, and then you'll come up with a non-technical analogy to that. And after a while, you'll do that. And so like Boris and Alla will use Innovation Workbench for non-technical problems, and they'll do it all with analogies in their head, and it doesn't bother them. For us, since we're just beginning, they've already done the analogy work for us in Knowledge Wizard, so we might as well take advantage of that. But once you become good enough at it, you can use the technical software for non-technical, and you'll flow right into it. So decide if you want to use the Innovation Workbench or the Knowledge Wizard, and then create your map. The creation of the map and the Innovation Workbench, if that's what you're going to use, is a little bit different. So I can help you with that if you're going to draw it in Innovation Workbench. Okay, so get back into your teams and go ahead and work on your maps. Before that, we do need a tea break. A massive tea break. To get us enough energy so we can do a good job on these maps.
Impressive.
Those are impressive, man.
If you guys want to use the projector, go ahead here and use the projector again. So go ahead and come here and use the projector button. Okay.
Do you work in teams, please? Yeah. Yeah, the previous problem.
Yeah, work in your team. Do your diagram. Make sure that your diagram represents, what happens in your system. So, if there's an intermediate step, put the intermediate step in it. But it should represent what actually happens in your system. Just to be knowledge.
Doing the same file, then later we can save them. No, I thought it was this method.
Tadi kita buat apa punya?
We have to copy.
Ya.
So kita copy.
Supaya senang kita. Supaya kita senang tak payah tak semula kita drag dia boleh masuk.
Yes. Kita buat sini semua. Tadi kita cancel. Ya, betul.
You want to share?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is the knowledge wizard, tak the tadi. The other one.
Knowledge wizard. Workbench. The one you say by
How's your tummy?
They have the non-technical example there.
Okay, kita copy lah
At least we know the difference of
Do you want to?
Oh, snake.
I need to.
now it's creating a diagram.
Kita buat diagram meeting dia. Kemudian nanti project ni nama. Project lah PGS. Everybody can see. Implement.
Create solution.
This is your power plant.
sistem kan ada.
Yang ni tak boleh transfer. Ada satu jenis kalau habis.
I cannot understand that today.
Oh tak.
Because as long as it says no written this way, I thought we can.
Sini tak boleh.
Oh, portrait and landscape.
Look. See what you did now. See what you did.
Curiosity.
Ini projek persimpanan tak boleh tidak. Sikit saja.
You have to go back to the.
Pointer not sharp enough, sharpening.
Mana ada beli siapa?
Have a hang.
Sekejap je.
Sharp. Dia biasa dengan orang yang berambut. Biasa dengan orang yang berambut.
Rambut tak boleh berganti.
Under innovation.
Okay. Scroll. Resource constraint.
Counter X lah. Okay lah.
Ini tadi cakap apa tadi?
First question would be whether tackle it and we can tackle it technically, right? Let's not focus on that line. Not focusing on that. Optimizing maybe rising whatever, right? So it's going to be a lot of technical stuff, not on the specification or like. Overall. Oh man. Okay. Now, agaknya that best because why kita tak do it. Kamu nak tak buat tadi dari situ. Please, come on. Go. Okay. Ini untuk di kriteria. Alright. This is by itself. No, wait. This is the same, isn't it?
It's just more
Yang kan kat sini. Seperti yang open ini. Tempat tadi yang kita guna was the wizard. What do you think? Some people feel system related.
we use this to find out
Yeah.
Just now what's the
Yeah. Yeah. The same as snake lah. So, okay, what was the basis of it?
Window that comes up around it, and just left click on that gray window.
Oh,
Scan
video.
out, produce or interact, and then whatever instance you are.
Match on the body. The harmful is
Not
not
where we're at, we'll pick it up tomorrow morning. Let's do a quick pluses and deltas for today. Pluses and deltas for today. We can improve for tomorrow. Things you like, things that could be improved for tomorrow. You like the software?
There is more participation today.
Okay, more participation, that's good.
Can we have a copy of project or whatever for this? Those time?
Yeah, sure. I can give you, put it on a memory stick and pass around a example case study for you.
You make the learning.
The one you quoted, Larry, the one that the work you did for ASK, do you have that software?
Yeah, I do have that one too. I can give you that one. That one's non-technical. Maybe I'll give you non-technical and one technical.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So I'll give you, I'll put them on a memory stick and we'll pass it around like we did today. Other things?
Working in group,
Pardon?
working in group would be
Working in groups is a plus.
I have one delta.
Yep.
Too many food. Yesterday was a plus. Today, no, man, it's a minus,
Too
man.
much masses.
That's a happy problem.
Happy face problem.
that's a good problem to have.
Any other pluses, deltas? Okay, thank you. And we'll start tomorrow at 9 o'clock and we'll pick up where we leave off today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it?
Survived so far.
So far. Any question in regards to what we've covered so far?
So our agenda today, what we need to accomplish today is we need to, this morning, get back into our teams, finish up the system diagram. Then we need to formulate the system diagram to get some directions for innovation. And then after we formulate it, each of your teams will read through those possible directions and pick a few to work on. And then as you select those couple to work on, they'll go into prioritized direction section of the innovation situation questionnaire. And then as you click on those on the left side of your software screen, on the right side the software will pull up appropriate systems of operators for you to begin brainstorming around. So in your teams you'll just pick an operator, take a look at it, look at the examples, see if that creates some ideas. If it does, hit the light bulb, type in the ideas. When the ideas stop, move to the next operator, and just see how many ideas you can come up with. So we'll have to limit our time in terms of how we address that today, but you'll get a feel for how the process works. And then we'll talk about today how to take those ideas, how to organize them, turn them into concepts. And then we want to make the concepts more ideal. And so there's two tools we have to make them more ideal. And those tools are going to be resources. How can we more appropriately use resources to make our concept work better? And then secondly, the laws and lines of evolution, and I'll show you where that is in the software. And then the third thing we can do is, after we've got the concept more fully developed, is do a very brief anticipatory failure determination to say what can go wrong with these things. And so that's in the software too. So that's our goal for today, is to go over that stuff. I wanted to cover with you just a couple things this morning before we get started. And remember, I'd said before that when we solve a problem, we can solve it at any level. So Altshuler said that there were 5 levels of innovation. And so when we're working on solving a problem, we can solve it at level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And every time we solve a problem at a particular level, so say we solve a problem at a level 3, then typically 2 to 5 inventions of the next lower level are required at level 2. So if you come up with a level 3 solution, to implement that solution, you may need 2 to 5 inventions at level 2. It will be a lower level than what your initial innovation is at, and it will be easier to solve, but then you need to go back with Triz and then work on those other inventions needed to implement the higher level solution. So remember what I told you about Boris Lotin? He says, can you eat that mushroom? So we'll have a mushroom, and there'll be something exciting about it, but also there'll be some issues associated with implementation. Now we have to use Triz to resolve those issues. So many reasons for delaying and implementing high-level ideas is that there's insufficient solving of subsequent problems. High psychological barriers. You think, oh, we can't do this, it's too hard. So don't think that. And lack of knowledge about resources. So if you really understood the resources that were available to you in your super system, your systems, or your subsystems, then you would have more courage to implement these high-level ideas. And so that's why it's important for us to understand the resources.
Just go back.
Yeah.
So then I'm sure you understand that. Only next level.
Suppose that you're working on your team's project, and you come up with an innovative idea, maybe to help implement Six Sigma without offending people, or maybe to get the paint to match the bumper in the automobile. So suppose you come up with a level 3 innovation. But to implement that innovation, there's going to be some challenges or issues associated with it. So remember when we were doing the example of the acid and the specimen, where Altshuler said, let's take away the glass container. Now you just have the specimen and the acid. How can you do the test? And we said, well, we'll put the acid in the specimen. But the next question is, how are you going to put the acid in the specimen? So there's a subsequent problem to be worked out in order to implement a higher level idea. Or remember when we were talking about the plating, and we're dipping the metal parts into the nickel bath, and we said we want to solve that with a separation in space. So we just want the nickel bath around the parts to be heated. We want the rest of the nickel bath to be cool. So the invention or the innovation is, well, let's heat the parts before they go into the nickel bath, and that way the parts will heat the bath just around the part itself. But then the subsequent task is, how are we going to heat those parts?
So you need another innovation.
So we need another, but that innovation is not as higher level innovation as the big idea of heating the parts first and then putting it into the bath. Now, Triz has a variety of different tools. Some people, when they use Triz, they just go out and they do patent searches and look at other literature. And Boris and Alla say that that's really the level 0 if you're implementing a solution like that. Level 1 would be selected innovation examples. The classical tools of Triz that Altshuler worked on, which were separation principles, the 40 inventive principles. He had his own language for systems engineering called substance field analysis, field analysis, and he had 76 standard solutions to systems engineering diagrams. And then the physical, the chemical, the geometrical effects. these are good for coming up with solutions at level 2. The system of operators that Boris and Alla came up with tend to provide solutions at level 3. And patterns, the laws and lines of evolution tend to give solutions at level 4. So those from Boris and Alla's experience, use of these Triz tools tend to produce solutions at these kinds of levels. I want to share with you, this is a map of Triz technology. So going back after World War II, Altshuler began working on Triz. Comes up with the 40 principles. Then he starts to look at how systems evolve over time and comes up with the 8 laws of evolution of systems. He starts to work on substance field analysis, 76 standard solutions. He puts all of these tools into an algorithm that he calls a Riz. And the last level of a Riz that he worked on was created in 1985. And then Altshuler became very ill after that, and essentially his work on Triz ended. Boris and Alla became students of Altshuler, established their own Triz school in Kishinev, Russia, back in 1982. And then around 1984, Boris Lotin invented anticipatory failure determination. So he said, let's use Triz to find root causes of problems and use Triz in reverse to try to find ways to prevent problems from happening ahead of time. Then Boris and Alla and their Kishinev Triz school began to do a lot of research in terms of non-technical applications of Triz. So Triz was pretty well developed for the technical applications, but people were struggling and saying, how do we use it for non-technical situations? So a lot of research occurred from about 1985 and is still going on today in terms of non-technical applications of Triz. And they also began doing a tremendous amount of research into directed evolution, finding lots of lines of evolution inside the laws and then coming up with a couple more laws of evolution. And then back in 1992, they immigrated to the United States, and they said that there's no way that people in America are going to undergo 6 weeks of training to learn Triz. So they said, we have to come up with software to make it easier to learn. And so they began working on advanced software tools to make the Triz easier to learn. And then back around 1995, they restructured the theoretical base of Triz to start with that Altshuler originally created it, which was that pattern associated with the theory of strong thinking. So they started there, said, let's start with the physical contradiction, and then we'll organize all of these operators that we've uncovered, all of these 76 standard solutions, all of Altshuler's original 40 principles. We'll organize them in terms of systems of operators that flow from the physical contradiction, the separation principles, and we'll organize them along laws and lines of evolution. And so that's what they have embedded into the software that we're using. And then they're continuing to research on the directed evolution and the intellectual property control. And Boris and Alla are writing a book right now with different chapters associated with different types of industry. Like there'll be a chapter on the automobile from directed evolution point of view. What does the future of the automobile look like? So that book will probably be coming out next year sometime. Should be a very, very interesting book. So that's kind of a layout of where the Triz technology has been and where it is now. And you can pretty much take any Triz provider who's teaching Triz in the world today, and you can pretty much figure out where they are on this map. So there are some people who feel that, and they feel quite strongly, and they're almost like a religious person, that the only Triz that should be is Triz that was created by Altshuler. So if Altshuler didn't create Triz, then it doesn't exist. So the only thing that they will teach in Triz is what Altshuler did up until 1985, and they say that's the tree's body of knowledge, and it can't grow after that because Altshuler died. So there's quite a few people who feel that way. There's some beginners where all they'll give you is the matrix of 40 principles, and they call that trees, and they don't know anything else besides that. There are folks who are classical trees people, and you can see where they are. And then there's folks at different stages of this kind of evolution of where the tree's body of knowledge has been going. So you can kind of see where that whole layout or whole picture looks like. Horus and Aleph, and we'll find this out today, that Triz is not a magic wand. So, you know, who comes up with the ideas? It's not the software or the Triz methodology that comes up with the ideas. You do. So it's you and your team that come up with the ideas, and you can come up with ideas even without having any knowledge of Triz. People do it all the time. So Horus and Aleph say that innovation success is really dependent upon your personal capability. Some people tend to be more innovative than others. It depends upon your personal knowledge. The more knowledge you have of the subject you're trying to innovate on, you know, the better off you're going to be. It depends on your personal motivation. How motivated are you to come up with an innovative idea and change? And it depends upon the management support of where it is you're working. If you have no management support, then you're not likely to have much motivation, and the chances of you coming up with a new idea are pretty slim. So these things really determine your innovation success, but then when you add Triz to it, they put Triz as a 1+ factor. So they say that Triz is a multiplier of these basic capabilities, and this multiplier can be up to hundreds. So you can multiply your innovation success by factors of hundreds if we can appropriately apply and use the tools of Triz. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you this morning. I think the next thing for us to do now is to get back into our groups, and then let's work on completing our system diagrams, and then I'll help you formulate those, and then we'll pick some directions for the software. Once we formulate it, we'll find all the possibilities for innovation. We'll pick the ones we want to work on, prioritize those, and then start brainstorming on operators. So that's our plan for this morning. Any questions? Okay, let's get into our teams and let's see what we can do. And one of the teams can use this projector. It's helpful too.
As always.
As always. Here.
You seriously?
So we only just focus on
Well, you might want to just go lower so they can see the whole thing and then come back to this. So you should see the extent of this.
Listen.
As you can see, they've got quite an extensive.
Wow.
Then we just focus on one part of it.
So you can see the extent of this. Okay, now you can go back up and share with us what you're interested in.
What does the pentagon stands for? Oh, not pentagon, hexagon.
Yeah. Just
You can choose any shape actually.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just to show the flexibility of the software.
Yeah, and I should show you this, that I don't know if everyone saw this, but on the innovation workbench, and it'll be in the next edition of Knowledge Wizard, is you can right-click on a box, go down to Properties,
Okay.
and then you can change the shape to anything you want. And you can customize the shape, you can customize the lettering, customize the colors. You can click on a line, go down to properties, and you can put text on this line if you want to. So you can also customize the type of line it is. So you've got those, you can customize your diagram whatever way you want in the Innovation Workbench. And when the new Knowledge Wizard comes out, you'll be able to do it with that, not in the old, the current version of the Knowledge Wizard yet.
Okay. The good thing of that is maybe you can start to focus on certain symbols that you really like.
Yeah, so you can customize it for your own team's use.
Okay, so we start with the mishmash bumper color. Okay. So this will generate all this stuff on customer complaint, then reward, scrap, and all this will lead to higher long-term costs. And the causes of this would be, of the mishmash bumper color would be the inadequate quality control. So I think we can highlight like the oven, I mean the current process without proper oven. And also could be low quality equipment use. So rather than the standard of the equipment recommended by Propart, maybe some other equipment or no equipment at all. Then no compliance of KUs. Okay. And then for this input, right, or for this process, actually all this need to, initially you have lower cost, okay, but as we see over here, right, the output from here actually, in the end, lead to higher cost. So, for this initial lower cost, actually this is more like, we have some individual that is maybe voluntarily connected, benefiting for this low cost kind of thing. Okay, maybe you get a project or and this actually timed with the outsource vendor, and because of this connection, right? So we see all this low quality, low quality control. Low quality equipment use or non-compliant case or whatever, because this vendor think that maybe they can get away from it or so.
Which I think ultimately leads to the mismatch in the bumper color. Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff, right, is actually from this.
And actually, too, the problem is that two different groups, are associated with the costs. So you think in terms of the low bumper cost for the short term, benefits one part of Proton, but then the high long-term cost associated with customer complaints, warranty, rework, scrap, hurts a different part of Proton. And the two parts don't talk to each other, so they can't reconcile the contradiction. So one part's benefiting, another part is hurting. And the hurt overcomes the benefit, but the company doesn't see that. Now the interesting thing about this is that this group decided that they would stay with Innovation Workbench and work on a technical solution. And so this big part of the diagram has to deal with the painting process. The real problem here isn't technical, because the technical solution already exists. The problem here is more in the management of the system, because they have the technology to do a good paint job. That's not the problem. The problem is that it's just cheaper not to do it, and certain parts of the system benefit by not having that done. And that's the real problem. So the interesting thing about these diagrams is we can start out and say, we're going to go for a scientific solution and forget about the system issues, but the diagram brings us back into the system issues anyway. And the other interesting thing is that I mentioned that there's no right or wrong way to do these diagrams. that the diagrams are, the solution process is pretty robust to the kind of diagram you put in it.